Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of NASA SpaceX Commercial Resupply Service Mission number 29, launching from Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad, and here at TLP Network, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here for our live coverage of the launch to the International Space Station. Falcon 9 booster 1081 is sitting out on the pad preparing for its second flight, this time launching from, as I said, Launch Complex 39A, the historic launch pad of the Apollo shuttle and now Crew Dragon program. But tonight we're going to be seeing a launch of a cargo Dragon, taking up a bunch of required supplies, food, fuel, and oxygen up to the International Space Station. As we get started, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We'll do some shout outs here. We got Amy, good to see you in Michigan. David, hello. Ginger is in Lakewood, Washington. Verica is in Norway. Sorry if I said that wrong. Fox is in St. Paul, Nebraska. David's also in Michigan. We got Justin in Mississippi. We got Timothy is in Montgomery, Alabama. Good to see you. David's in Chicago. Steven's in Jacksonville. Walter's in North Carolina. Bunch of people tuning in all over the world, and we're going to do some more shout outs here as we continue through our countdown to launch of CRS-29. This booster has previously supported the launch of CRS-26 and is now going for its second flight. One of the big questions, how long will it get to the station? Today's mission will take 32 hours, and then Dragon will autonomously dock to the International Space Station on Saturday at 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time. NASA and SpaceX are getting spooled up to begin their live coverage, so we are going to patch them in and listen in to their live commentary coverage for tonight's launch. We're going to be answering your guys' comments and questions in the chat, so you can send those in by tagging us at the launch pad as we continue to count down to launch, but we're glad to have you here. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to joining us here for live, and let's listen in to NASA and SpaceX Mission Control.
Are looking live at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. In just over 27 minutes, this Falcon 9 rocket will launch the 29th Commercial Resupply Services mission from both NASA and SpaceX to the International Space Station. Good evening and welcome to live coverage of the CRS-29 launch. I'm NASA's Jasmine Hopkins. Today's launch is the first live broadcast available on NASA's newest free streaming platform, NASA Plus. Scan the QR code on your screen now for more mission coverage, new original content, and to put the NASA universe at your fingertips. For CRS-29, fueling of the Falcon 9 began about 12 minutes ago, and we're counting down to an instantaneous launch at 8:28 and 14 seconds Eastern Time. This mission will deliver over 6,000 pounds of science supplies and equipment to the space station. And commercial resupply missions help NASA and our partners continue research to better our life right here on Earth and help us explore deep space. So let's go now to SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, where Jesse Anderson is standing by to tell us more about the vehicle supporting today's mission. Jesse?
Thanks, Jasmine. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a manufacturing engineering manager for Falcon here at SpaceX. It's great to be covering today's mission in partnership with NASA, marking SpaceX's 81st launch of the year. Now, on your screen in a second, there you go. You can see a live view of SpaceX's two-stage Falcon 9 rocket with our Dragon spacecraft at the very top. Today marks SpaceX's sixth and final mission to the space station for 2023. And in fact, this will mark the most flights Dragon has flown to the orbiting laboratory in any single year. Since taking flight in 2010, Dragon remains one of the few vehicles that can deliver significant cargo to the space station and the only vehicle that can deliver cargo from the space station. It's a fully autonomous vehicle, which means it's capable of flying itself to and from its destinations. Today, Dragon has visited the station 38 times and transported more than 300,000 pounds of cargo back and forth from the orbiting laboratory. It's also the first private spacecraft to take humans to the space station. Falcon 9 and Dragon were both designed with reflight in mind, and the vehicle hardware is built to support multiple missions with minimal refurbishment. Today's Dragon is flying for its second time and marks SpaceX's 21st reuse of the vehicle. Below Dragon is Falcon 9, which you can think of as two rockets built in one. The lower part, which is also the larger part of the rocket, is called the first stage. The first stage has 9 Merlin 1D engines, which accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere and into various orbits in space. At the top of the first stage is the Black inner stage, and above that is the Falcon 9 second stage. The two stages will separate about 2.5 minutes into flight, and then the second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum, or what we call the MVAC engine, which is the 10th engine on the rocket, to carry Dragon to its desired orbit. Now, like Dragon today, the Falcon 9 first stage is flying for its second time as well, and we plan to recover it back on land at Landing Zone 1, located at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, completing the first return to launch site for a Dragon cargo mission. Now, so far, we've reflown 214 first stages, and that includes Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. If successful, it will mark the 243rd recovery of an orbital-class rocket. As the clock approaches T0, let's head over to NASA's Steve Seifoloff at Cape Canaveral to talk about today's weather. Steve, how's it going over there?
Well, the weather is terrific, Jesse. 100% go. In the words of Launch Weather Officer Melody Lovin, it's as good as it gets. And with that, welcome inside Hangar AE here at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida, just a couple miles down from Launch Complex 39A. From here, we're going to monitor the launch team as they take us through tonight's countdown. So far, the nets have been relatively quiet, which is a good sign. The vehicle is healthy. The team's not working any issues. The teams performed a hot fire test just a couple days ago to prove the rocket was ready. The brief engine firing of about a second is a routine test that allows the turbopumps and engine machinery of the Falcon 9 first stage to spin up long enough for engineers to evaluate the system. After that evaluation, the NASA and SpaceX teams yesterday cleared the rocket and spacecraft for launch today. The 45th Space Wing says the eastern range is green, and that means our path from here to the International Space Station is clear and safe. Again, the weather tonight is terrific. 100% go. Still, the Launch Weather Officer Melody Lovin will be monitoring the clouds for potential violations. There is a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind from the ocean, but that's not nearly enough to affect the rocket as it climbs through the atmosphere and into orbit. After its work is done, the first stage will come back here to land at Landing Zone 1, about a mile or so away. That is different from recent cargo launches to the space station that saw the first stage land offshore on a drone ship. And to save you a Google search, the first cargo mission to see the first stage return to land was CRS-9 back in 2016. Right now, SpaceX is fueling the Falcon 9 with RP-1, or rocket-grade kerosene, and super cold liquid oxygen. That is minus 297 degrees, and it is also being loaded into the first stage and second stage. And it's that liquid oxygen turning into a gas and venting into the air that is producing the white clouds you see around the rocket. All rockets are designed with valves that open to allow the oxygen to boil off to maintain the right pressure in the tanks. Those clouds form when the oxygen makes contact with Florida's humid air. Our launch time tonight is 8:28 and 14 seconds, and the launch window is instantaneous to put the spacecraft on course to dock with the International Space Station on Saturday, November 11th at 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time. For more on that, let's head over to Chelsea Bayarte inside NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston.
Thanks, Steve, and welcome to the International Space Station's Flight Control Room here inside Mission Control. I'm Chelsea Bayarte, live in NASA's Johnson Space Center here in Houston, Texas. Teams of flight controllers are behind me monitoring tonight's launch with Flight Director Garrett Henn at the helm. Mission Control is go for launch, meaning the space station is ready to receive the spacecraft, and we're not tracking any issues that would prevent a docking. From here on out, mission controllers will observe the launch and monitor the Dragon vehicle during all milestones of its flight. The astronauts on board are likely to be asleep at the time of launch. There are 7 people living aboard the International Space Station now: NASA astronauts Jasmine Mogbelli and Laurel O'Hara, Andreas Mogensen from Denmark, Satoshi Furukawa from Japan, and Roscosmos cosmonauts Konstantin Borisov, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub. When the Cargo Dragon arrives on November 11th, it will dock autonomously, but O'Hara and Mogbelli will be on deck to monitor its arrival. The crew will first unpack the more time-sensitive science experiments and cargo, and then, as the week goes on, continue to unpack their delivery. They'll be receiving some pizza kits, olives, an assortment of cheeses, and some holiday treats like pumpkin spice cappuccino, cranberry sauce, and chocolate. So I'm sure they're looking forward to it. In the meantime, here in Mission Control, everything is still a go, and we're looking forward to following along with the Cargo Dragon during its journey to the International Space Station. So for now, let's go back to Kennedy. Jasmine?
Thank you so much for those updates, Chelsea and team. We are now at T-minus 19 minutes and counting from liftoff of the 29th Commercial Resupply Services mission from NASA and SpaceX. This mission will carry 6,505 pounds of cargo, including supplies to support the crew on board, spacewalk equipment, vehicle hardware, computer resources, and of course, science investigations. So let's take a closer look at what's on board.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage, T-minus 19 minutes and counting till launch of CRS-29, launching from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Was just hearing from one of our rocket chasers down on site, Gavin, saying it is really dark tonight, and you can see that also on the live camera view from the pad there. Falcon 9 currently fueling up, preparing for flight here. We'll jump back in, let this video play, because I know many people are talking about what is on board. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you all joining us live here tonight. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live.
NASA's first two-way laser communications relay system known as Illuma-T. After attaching to the outside of the space station, this laser communications terminal will send and receive data through NASA's LCRD satellite on orbit. Using invisible infrared light, laser communications can transmit data up to 100 times faster than traditional radio frequency systems. Illuma-T brings this capability to the International Space Station, enabling more data to be transmitted and received. And of course, more data means more discoveries. Also on this mission is the atmospheric waves experiment known as AW. This heliophysics experiment will capture the first global observations of atmospheric gravity waves that form near the surface and impact Earth's upper atmosphere. Increasing our understanding of these waves could teach us more about Earth's atmosphere, climate, and near-Earth space weather. AW is also part of what NASA is calling the Heliophysics Big Year, a global celebration of solar science and the sun's influence on Earth and the entire solar system. Our work in low Earth orbit is, of course, paving the way to deep space as we shoot for the moon and beyond. Around this time last year, Artemis 1 lifted off, and for Artemis 2, NASA plans to send a crew of 4 astronauts around the moon farther than humanity has ever gone before. To learn how about we're getting there, let's check out our Artemis Moon Minute.
And we'll keep an eye out on the pad. There's a live view of Launch Pad 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where they are continuing through the count. T-minus 16 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting till launch of the Cargo Dragon. Next major milestones that we're going to be expecting in tonight's countdown is going to be right around that 16-minute mark, or just a few seconds from now. That is when loading of the liquid oxygen on the second stage will begin. And then after that, it goes all the way down to that 7-minute mark in the count when they will begin the engine chill of those 9 Merlin 1D engines on the bottom of Falcon 9, preparing for today's flight. You heard there earlier from the weather director, 100% go for launch. It's not often we get to hear that, but we're back into that season. Through the summer storm weather on the Space Coast, things generally get a bit more stable here as we go through the winter, which is always great for planning these launches and not having too many of the dreaded S words, but we're glad to have a beautiful evening here on the Space Coast tonight as we continue through the countdown. T-minus 15 minutes, 30 seconds and counting.
Person of color on the moon. And these goals are characterized by NASA's graphic novel, First Woman. This is the fictional story of Callie Rodriguez, the first woman to explore the lunar surface. Her struggles and triumphs were inspired by the lives of many real NASA astronauts, like Jasmine McBelly and Laurel O'Hara, who are part of the current space station crew. The second volume of this story with new characters and new technologies is available now in both English and Spanish, And the astronauts on station are in for a real treat because we're sending them a copy with today's launch. You can follow Callie's adventures on NASA's websites and our social media. Now we're just about T-minus 14 minutes and counting from liftoff of CRS-29 from both NASA and SpaceX to the International Space Station. So let's bring back Jesse now to tell us more about SpaceX and their efforts to explore the moon, Mars, and beyond. Jesse?
Thanks, Jasmine. As many of you may already know, SpaceX's ultimate mission is to make life multiplanetary. To get us there, we've been developing a fully and rapidly reusable transportation system called Starship, the most powerful launch system ever developed and designed to carry passengers and cargo to Earth orbit, the moon, and planetary destinations like Mars. Starship's first fully integrated flight test back in April provided numerous lessons learned that directly contributed to several upgrades to both the vehicle and ground infrastructure to improve the probability of success on future flights. Our second flight test could launch as soon as mid-November, pending regulatory approval, which is just around the corner. This next test will debut a hot stage separation system and a new electronic thrust vector control, or TVC system, for Super Heavy Raptor engines, in addition to reinforcements to the pad foundation and a water-cooled steel flame deflector, among many other enhancements. Building bases or even cities on Mars will require huge amounts of cargo and eventually crew. So we're designing Starship from the beginning to carry hundreds of tons of cargo into space and be able to refuel in orbit. Before Mars, Starship will play a key role in the exploration of the moon. We're providing the lunar lander, which will return astronauts to the lunar surface for the first time in more than 50 years under NASA's Artemis missions. With the ability to deliver cargo and people to the lunar surface, we'll be ready to help humanity build a sustainable presence on the moon and learn how to live off-world before the next steps to Mars. Today, however, we are going a little closer to home with our Dragon spacecraft, where all of our learning on human space transportation began. And all the work and advancement we continue to make with Dragon in low Earth orbit will continue to pave the way for our future deep space missions with Starship. And now I'll turn it back to Jasmine at KSC to take a look at one of the payloads flying on today's mission. Jasmine?
Thanks so much, Jesse. Yes, on today's mission, we are launching seeds from the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. And here to tell us more about the Growing Hope Initiative is Jacqueline Putman. Thank you so much for being here, Jackie.
Halito and Tachikama, Jasmine. It's very nice to be here. My name is Jacqueline Harjo Putman. I am the coordinator for Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. This is National Heritage Month, so this is Native American Month, so this is a very important month for us. We're sending up our traditional seeds in this. We're very, very excited about this. These are seeds that came down the Trail of Tears. These are seeds that were sown in the hems of our ancestors' garments, so they knew when they left Mississippi that they would have to have food to start over. So they had the forethought, and they would have never dreamed where we're going today.
Right, Jacqueline, there's a lot of emotional significance to these seeds.
Absolutely.
So can you tell us about, you guys are going to plant them at Jones Elementary. How are these going to inspire the next generation?
Oh, this is exciting. When they come back, what we're going to do is take them to Jones Academy. It's a Native American school that we have. And they're going to plant them. We're going to do the STEM program. We're going to do a side-by-side testing for what has been on Earth, what's gone out of space, do a comparison. We're getting these kids excited about science. We want to get new astronauts. We want them to know they have a future. That this is something that they can do. This is not out of range.
Right.
That this is something that they can have as well.
Exactly. Jacqueline, we actually showed some pictures on the screen of the different things that are going to be planted. What seeds, what kind of seeds are you sending?
We're sending our traditional Tanchi flower corn. It can grow up to 20 feet tall. We've grown it to 18.5 feet. This is what we grind up and make our banaha bread. Mm-hmm. We're sending our Choctaw sweet potato squash. It can last on the shelf up to a year, tying manganese, magnesium, zinc, vitamin A, and iron. And this is hopefully foods that will hold the astronauts will hopefully cake and grow themselves because they last. They're good for you. So and then we have our Tanchi. We have our Smith peas. We have chickpea peas. These are just really prolific peas that do really well indoors, outdoors, and they're high in iron. And they're really prolific. So we're really hoping that they'll put these to use because
that is awesome. Jackie, how are you going to incorporate this into the STEM curriculum?
Actually, what we're doing is we're building a new garden. We've been talking about building a brand new garden over at Jones Academy for this program so we could have extra produce for the kids to study and get them interested in this program so that can lead to college educations, to NASA.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
who could ever believe that we would be here at NASA today?
Right.
And we're kicking off Native American Month, so we're very excited and very honored.
That is fabulous. Very poignant. Very good timing for this. Thank you so much, Jackie Putman. So this science and all the science launching today is made possible by the International Space Station, which celebrates 25 years of operation this month. Here's a look at some of the highlights from the past few decades on the orbiting laboratory.
And if you're just joining us, welcome. T-minus 9 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. There is a live view of Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where teams are continuing through the propellant loading sequence. The next milestone in the countdown will be in about 2 minutes' time, when we have the beginning of that pre-engine chill on those 9 Merlin 1D engines on the base of Falcon 9. That occurs at the 7-minute mark. Today's booster is Booster 1081, going for its second flight after previously supporting CRS-29 a couple of years ago at this point. Today is an instantaneous launch window as we continue through that count, targeting 8:28 p.m. Eastern Time. We do have a backup time that would be at 8:05 tomorrow. Cargo Dragon will fly to the International Space Station once separating from the second stage. Short time into flight, Dragon will take about 32 hours to approach the International Space Station carefully, methodically, and as quickly as possible. Dragon will autonomously dock with the International Space Station on Saturday, November 11th at 5:20 a.m. Eastern Time, and we hope that you will join us live for that. T-minus 8 minutes, 18 seconds and counting till launch.
And working on the space station, making up the Expedition 70 crew. This expedition began on September 27th, and the team represents several international agencies: NASA, ESA, JAXA, and Roscosmos. During their long-duration stay in low Earth orbit, they will research heart health, cancer treatments, space manufacturing techniques, and more to benefit life on and off the planet. CRS-29 is expected to dock to the space station this Saturday. That's November 11th at 5:20 a.m. And NASA astronauts Jasmine Montbelly and Laurel O'Hara will be monitoring the operation to ensure all this cargo is delivered safely. All right, we're marching towards launch at T-minus 7 minutes and counting for liftoff of CRS-29. So let's bring back Steve here on Florida's Space Coast and Jesse live at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, to walk us through the final moments of countdown and liftoff. Take it away.
Thank you, Jasmine. It is just under 7.5 minutes until launch, and the SpaceX team is working no significant issues, and the vehicle is healthy. Weather is 100% go for T0, and the range is ready to support today's mission. At this point, Rocket Propellant 1 or RP1 fuel is completely loaded on the second stage and nearly complete on the first stage. Liquid oxygen or LOX loading is currently underway on both stages and will complete at the T-minus 2 minute mark. We just heard a call out for engine chill. We're also loading helium gas into both stages. Falcon 9 uses helium as a pressurant to backfill the propellant tanks, as liquid oxygen and RP1 are consumed by the Merlin engines during ascent. Helium load began before the broadcast went live and will continue to top off until about a minute and a half before launch.
And SpaceX performed that engine chill just a few seconds ago, around T-minus 7 minutes. That's when the team flowed a small amount of liquid oxygen at minus 297 degrees into the Merlin engine's turbopumps. And you may have heard the call there. Stage 1 fuel load is complete. They're basically doing that engine chill. They're basically prepping the propulsion system for the full flow of liquid oxygen. And by doing this, they avoid a thermal shock to the system, and that ensures that engine startup goes well. Dragon also began its startup sequence at T-minus 35 minutes when it coordinated timing with the Falcon 9 rocket. The spacecraft is currently undergoing vehicle health checks. It'll enter terminal count at about T-minus 5 minutes, with the next big step just a minute before liftoff, when Dragon will transition to internal power.
And you can see on your screen there are clamp arms beneath the Dragon vehicle. Once those begin to open up, that'll be coming up here shortly in just about under a minute now. Those clamp arms will open up, and that'll allow the transporter erector, which is that large trusted structure that you see on your screen next to the vehicle, that will begin to retract away from the vehicle. The transporter erector, or the TE, is used for vehicle rollout and to route.
Dragon's on internal power.
To route propellants and electrical power to the vehicle in preparation for launch. Now, once the clamp arms are fully opened, that'll allow some room for that TE to be able to move back from the vehicle. In these last few minutes before T0, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on its primary communications, avionics, and propulsion systems in preparation for flight. We may hear callouts that engines are sufficiently chilled as we get a little closer to liftoff, and then we did hear that call out that they are preparing for strong back retract. That is the TE that I just mentioned. And maybe a little hard to see, but the clamp arms should be opening very slowly there. Again, they are the arms just below the Dragon that you see there on your screen. And there you can see those clamp arms opening up. And again, as a reminder, the booster on your screen is flying for its second time and will be landing back on land at landing zone 1, which is not too far from the launch site. And there you can see that the clamp arms look like they're fully open now. That transporter erector can now begin to move away from the vehicle. It will also be pretty slow and slight, but just enough to allow some room for the vehicle for liftoff.
And at T-minus 3 minutes, 22 seconds and counting, we are waiting for a call for Stage 1 liquid oxygen loading complete. This launch will take about 6,000 pounds of hardware, crew supplies, and science to the space station.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
And there we have the call we were waiting for. Stage 1 LOX load complete. That is the liquid oxygen. One of the larger pieces of equipment that CRS-29 is carrying tonight is a technology demonstrator. It's called Illuma-T, and it'll transmit data to Earth on lasers. Those lasers can hold a lot more data than previous communications equipment, and this trial will show how that rush of data can help researchers learn a lot more about their work on the station. Dragon will be docked to the space station for about a month before returning home. At T-minus 2 minutes, 25 seconds and counting, we are awaiting the checkouts of the second stage thrust vector control actuators.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where NASA and SpaceX are preparing to launch a SpaceX Cargo Dragon to the International Space Station. T-minus 2 minutes and counting. You can see the water systems at the pad have already begun in the neighboring area around the pad as we prepare for the final 2 minutes of the count, going into Falcon 9 startup and eventually liftoff. If it's your first time here at the launch pad, you may be watching on a number of different platforms. Join us here on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage. And as always, in the final minutes of the count, let's see that go, no go in the chat as we listen in to the final minutes of the count. T-minus 90 seconds and counting till launch of NASA SpaceX CRS-29.
Those clouds are normal. That is the chilled gas above the liquid tank liquid surface for the liquid oxygen that we vent out overboard to maintain pressure in the tank as needed. And once that cold gas comes into contact with that warmer air, it creates those white clouds that you see there.
And we are at T-minus 1 minute, 5 seconds and counting. Soon the Falcon 9 computers will enter startup mode.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there we have the call from the launch director. Falcon 9 computers have entered startup mode, and the Dragon spacecraft is on internal power. Both stages are now pressurizing for launch. And
LD, go for launch.
And there we have the on-time call of the SpaceX launch director verifying we are go for launch this evening. Liftoff scheduled for 8:28 p.m. Eastern Time and 14 seconds. At launch, the International Space Station will be flying 259 miles over the Arabian Sea near the coast of Oman. We are 15 seconds to launch and counting.
15 seconds and counting. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff.
And liftoff of CRS-29 carrying cargo, research,
Cool.
and a laser,
Pitching downrange.
and a laser communication.
Engine pressure is nominal.
A laser communications demonstrator to the International Space Station, now in its 25th year of orbital operations.
Nominal power and telemetry.
At T plus 40 seconds, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from historic Launch Complex 39A in Florida. We are now coming up on max Q in just about 15 seconds or so. That is
Falcon
the point
9
of
is
maximum
supersonic.
aerodynamic. That's the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will go through during its flight.
Max Q.
And great call out there. We have passed through max Q. Now with that, we have 5 events coming up that will be back to back. First will be main engine cutoff. Main engine is that what you see on your screen. Those 9 Merlin engines are lit up right now, but we will have MECO, which is main engine cutoff. And that's where we'll shut down all of those engines that you see there on your screen. That'll slow the vehicle down in preparation for the next event called stage separation, which is where the first and second stages will separate from each other. Then the first stage will perform a flip to head back to our launch site for landing, while the second stage continues to light its Merlin vacuum engine to boost Dragon to low Earth orbit during SES-1 or second stage start 1. And the last event will be the first stage, starting up its 1 minute long boostback burn. Again, those events are coming up here in a few seconds. Main engine cutoff, stage separation, stage 1 flip, second stage engine start, and the boostback burn for that first stage vehicle.
Nico.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 1,
ignition.
boostback startup.
Love those views on your screen. You could see stage separation with the first stage heading back to land and the MVAC engine on your screen lit up. And on your left-hand side there on your screen, you can see the first stage in its boostback burn. Some really awesome views there. On your right-hand screen is a view from the second stage looking at the MVAC engine. Again, this is just about a minute burn for this boostback burn on the first stage. It is the first of 3 burns required to bring the first stage back to landing zone 1.
Stage 1, boostback shutdown.
And we just heard that call out, and you can see as the engines shut down on your screen, that concludes the boostback burn for the first stage vehicle. If you're just tuning in, you're watching a live webcast for the 29th commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station for NASA. This is SpaceX's 81st mission for 2023 and the 6th and final Dragon flight to the International Space Station this year. We lifted off from Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A just about 4 minutes ago. And as a reminder, today's mission marks the 2nd flight for this Falcon 9 booster, which previously supported the Crew 7 launch earlier this year in August. This is also the first return to launch site for a cargo mission, which helps improve refurbishment and relight times for Falcon 9. And what you're seeing on your screen again is a live view on the second stage, looking at the MVAC engine there. For the first stage, in order to make its way back to landing zone 1, it does have a couple more burns to execute. The next burn is the entry burn, and that's where we will relight
Vehicles
3
are
of
on
the
a
9
nominal trajectory.
Merlin. Great call outs there. Nominal trajectories for both vehicles. The entry burn is where we will relight 3 of the 9 Merlin 1D engines. This will help to slow the stage down as it re-enters back into the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Then the third and final burn will be the landing burn. That is a single engine burn. The center E9 engine helps bring the vehicle speed down rapidly just before touching down on the landing zone. And again, the M1D engines have about 190,000 pounds of thrust, which is just enough lighting 1 engine to touchdown for landing today. We are just about 15 seconds or so away from that entry burn beginning on the first stage vehicle. We do use 4 grid fins on the first stage to help guide the vehicle back to its landing zone. They are 4 hypersonic grid fins comprised of titanium that are positioned near the top of the first stage.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
There's that call out. The entry burn has begun. This burn will last just about 15 seconds.
Stage 1,
or so.
entry burn shutdown.
And very quick burn, but as you can see, those engines shut down on your screen. That concludes the entry burn for the first stage vehicle. And you can kind of see the grid fins there with a little gleam of light on your screen.
Stage 1, FTS saved.
Vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
Excellent call outs. The first stage vehicle also has 4 landing legs near the base of the vehicle, and that they
Stage 1
are
transonic.
they're deployed just a few seconds before touchdown of the vehicle. And if successful, this will mark the 243rd time that we've recovered a first stage booster, and that includes Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy missions.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There's that call out. The landing burn has begun. You can see it there on your left-hand screen. Let's watch as Falcon 9 touches down.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And an awesome sight to see. As you can see, the Falcon 9 first stage that supported today's mission landed for its 2nd time and has previously supported the Crew 7 mission in August earlier this year. This marks the 238th successful landing for an orbital class rocket. Now, next up in a few seconds, just about 20 seconds or so, will be the shutdown of the MVAC engine that you see ignited there on your screen. That event is called SECO, or Second Engine Cutoff, and that'll be the first shutdown of this MVAC engine.
SECO. Nominal orbit insertion.
Great news. We have just had SECO and heard a confirmation of good nominal insertion.
And if you're just joining us, you're looking at a live view of the MVAC engine on the 2nd stage of Falcon 9, carrying Cargo Dragon C211 on its 2nd ever mission now officially in orbit, traveling 27,000 kilometers an hour in an orbit of 189 kilometers. Dragon deployment expected to begin here at 11 minutes 46 seconds into flight, with nose cone opening just less than 60 seconds after that. You can see on the back of the screen there behind the engine the Space Coast passing off into the distance, now passing Florida, North Carolina, up the eastern seaboard of the United States as Cargo Dragon begins its 32-hour journey to the International Space Station. We're continuing to listen to mission control, so we are now just 2 minutes away from that Dragon separation and should have some great views of that. If you haven't subscribed yet, take a moment and do so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth. Also, it's launch day, which means head on over to topnetwork.com, click on the shop button, use promo code LAUNCHDAY, and you can get 10% off of everything over on the shop, including our limited edition ugly space sweaters, shirts, and blankets. We have our ugly Starbase and our We Are Going Ugly shirts this year, so make sure you grab those. Still time to get them in time for the holiday season. T plus 10 minutes, 20 seconds into flight. Also, if you enjoy space, consider joining us over on the TLP Discord. That's where our community hangs out in between launches, and we'd love to see you over there. We're going to be doing some more hangouts and general comms and things like that following post launches beginning here in the near future. And if you're interested in joining the TLP crew as part of our TLP live team as a moderator, our news team as a journalist, or possibly a photographer or videographer as a rocket chaser, head over to tlpnetwork.com, click on the About page. That's where our applications are, and we'd love to invite you. As here at the Launchpad, we believe it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. Now 45 seconds and counting till Dragon deployment, listening in to NASA SpaceX Mission Control for deployment of Confirmation of Dragon. Confirmation of Dragon deployment. Let's say that the right way around.
Dark side is those solar panels, while the light side is a radiator to help keep the spacecraft cool. Once the Dragon capsule reaches the International Space Station, it will be able to autonomously dock using its navigation sensors, centerline camera, and light detection and ranging or LiDAR equipment. The Dragon capsule is connected to the trunk beneath it via the trunk claw and connects thermal control, power, and avionics system components between the trunk and the capsule. And another fun fact, once on station, Dragon can serve as an extra module for science payloads lacking room on the space station, which we refer to as Extend the Lab.
Dragon separation confirmed.
And there you can see on your screen, the Dragon spacecraft has separated from the Falcon 9 second stage. Now, if you're just now joining us, you're watching a live broadcast for the 29th commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station for NASA. This is SpaceX's 81st mission this year and 6th and final Dragon flight to station for 2023. We lifted off just about 12 and a half minutes ago from NASA Kennedy Space Center Launch Complex 39A in Florida. And coming up in just a few moments will be the nose cone opening for the Dragon capsule. All right, so that will do it for me here in Hawthorne. So we are going to send it over to Chelsea in Houston to talk us through the nose cone opening. Chelsea?
Thank you, Jesse, and welcome back to the International Space Station's Flight Control Room. I'm here with continued live coverage here in Mission Control Houston. We got a view of launch up on the monitors here in the room, and just like you saw at home, the Cargo Dragon spacecraft is making its way to the space station as we speak. As Jesse explained, the spacecraft has already gone through a number of milestones. It separated from the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket and performed a number of automatic checkouts, doing small firings of the Draco thrusters. The next major milestone that we'll be looking out for here in Mission Control is nose cone deploy. We already got confirmation that these latches, the things that are attaching the Dragon nose cone, are starting to come off. This is a process that's going to take a couple of minutes, and then that nose cone will begin to pop off. So let's talk a little bit about why we want this nose cone deployed.
I'm just going to make a really quick correction. The nose cone does not pop off of Cargo Dragon. It delatches and then it opens like a a can or something, but with a lid that you can put back on, like a water bottle. We do not pop off the nose cones of Cargo Dragon. But if you're just joining us, welcome. We are waiting for visual confirmation of that nose cone opening. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. 14 minutes, 30 seconds into flight. You saw there a little blast of light that says inside the trunk of Cargo Dragon. You can see what's being held inside there. An incredible view showing that payload on board and giving us a little bit of a view from the underside of Dragon out into the vacuum of space as Cargo Dragon begins its 32-hour journey to the International Space Station. Some people saw it in the chat. Let us know if you're on the East Coast and you happen to see tonight's launch. Penny, saw it go by central North Carolina. Difficult to see, like a faint, fast-moving comet. There was a plume. That's awesome. Glad you're able to at least see a little bit there, Penny. Great to see. You can see there just a dropout of that signal, waiting for confirmation of nose cone opening.
Nose cone will start to slowly swing open. This is a process that could take an additional 5 minutes, and we hope to get live views of this from the Cargo Dragon spacecraft later on. This mission is all about cargo. It's astronaut food, it's science experiments, it's hardware, all being delivered to the crew's doorstep in space. They're in their sleep period right now, but they'll wake up to the news that their package is on its way. NASA astronauts Laurel O'Hara and Jasmine Mogbelli will monitor the spacecraft's arrival on Saturday. We're waiting for confirmation of a good nose cone deployment of the spacecraft, which can take a few minutes for those latches to open. But after the nose cone is open, Mission Control will continue to monitor the spacecraft's journey, including a scheduled phase burn that the Cargo Dragon will perform autonomously. That burn is expected to begin just a short while from now, with the engines firing for close to 12 minutes in duration. Going into Friday, the spacecraft will perform an additional 5 burns, all with the goal of fine-tuning Cargo Dragon's path to the International Space Station. Moving on to early Saturday here in Houston, the spacecraft will be in the vicinity of the space station. A team here in Mission Control will work closely with SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. They'll monitor as the spacecraft autonomously moves through the steps and checks required for docking. Today's Cargo Dragon will be parked in the space station's Node 2 forward port. Node 2 is also known as the Harmony module, and it has been unoccupied since NASA's SpaceX Crew 6 crew departed the space station in September of this year. The Crew 6 spacecraft was a Crew Dragon. Its departure brought NASA astronauts Steve Bowen and Woody Hoberg home, along with their crew members Sultan Al-Niyati and Andrei Fedyaev. But in its place will be today's Cargo Dragon when it docks on November 11th. NASA's Anna Schneider will be here in Mission Control with live coverage of docking Saturday morning. But this spacecraft has a lot of milestones to hit before it arrives, including the opening of the nose cone. It's a step that the spacecraft is working on right now. We're waiting for confirmation that the all 12 latches around the docking ring are open. And those rings are open and the nose cone is starting to open up. So you're getting the view from the inside of the Cargo Dragon spacecraft. We're looking at the nose cone now. This is the very tip of the spacecraft, the tip of the rocket you were looking at on the launch pad. This is the nose cone opening up, and right underneath it we'll get a view of the vacuum of space. This nose cone will stay in this open position until the very end of its mission, closing once again just before the spacecraft re-enters Earth's atmosphere to provide some additional protection to that same hardware. This Cargo Dragon spacecraft is expected to return next month, undocking from the space station's Harmony module in early December, bringing back science experiments and other supplies back to Earth. Again, on your screen, you were seeing some motion moments ago. This is the nose cone of the Cargo Dragon spacecraft opening up. This maneuver was allowed by 12 latches that unhooked themselves one set of 6 at a time, allowing free motion of the nose cone that you see in motion here. This nose cone deployment started just almost 7 minutes ago, and now the nose cone is opening and we're looking at the vacuum of space from the point of view of the Cargo Dragon spacecraft. Just because it's no longer on your screen does not mean it's fully open. It has a couple of degrees more to go before we get confirmation of good nose cone deploy.
With that view of the nose cone now officially being open. Ooh, chunk of ice flying off a Dragon there. Coming out of the nose cone area, that's normal to see. T plus 20 minutes, 5 seconds into flight. Cargo Dragon now beginning its 32-hour journey to the International Space Station. We're going to wrap up, but we wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who has watched this evening. We want to say big thank you to all of those that super chatted tonight through YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. All of that goes back into upgrading our equipment to bring you guys better coverage of everything happening in space. We're super excited to be bringing out live coverage cameras from our own TLP camera for upcoming launches on the Space Coast in the near future. And of course, we're working on our plans for Starship, Artemis 2, and more as we continue to expand our coverage, not only in the United States, but also around the world to show you the best views of everything happening in space and the news. There's a fantastic view coming in infrared, actually, looks like, from Dragon, but there was a dropout of signal. But that's going to do it for us here tonight. If it's your first time watching on any of the platforms, join us over here on YouTube. Engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth here on the Launchpad channel. And make sure to subscribe to the Launchpad news channel for live news conferences, interviews, and tours. Let's listen in here for the Deputy Manager.
Your schedule gets increasingly busy with science and research. Can you tell us some of the important work that they'll be doing?
Sure, that was a beautiful launch. Oh my gosh, and the booster landing was amazing. So the crew is very busy when it arrives. They're actually very busy even preparing for Dragon before it docks. The crew talks with payload developers to prepare for experiments they'll be doing. They also have a conference with our inventory and stowage officer to discuss the cargo being delivered and any changes to how they'll execute the unpacking and packing plan during the 30-day mission. The crew then does prepare for docking and ingress, and once Dragon is docked, the crew will perform their leak checks before they open the hatch. But yes, once Dragon arrives and the hatch is open, the crew gets right into work and we'll begin working on some of the experiments that were launched. One of these that I find interesting is from the European Space Agency called cerebral aging. It's a study of the effect of spaceflight and durability in space on cerebral organoids. An organoid is an artificially grown mass of cells or tissue that resembles an organ. So in this case, the brain. The overall goal of this experiment is to study the aging process in cerebral organoids derived from normal individuals and those patients with accelerated aging that may or may not be displaying hypersensitivity to UV radiation conditions, similar to what living organisms are exposed to during spaceflight. So this experiment will help us learn more about the effects of space conditions on our brains as we prepare for even longer duration space flights. And of course, the crew will be busy unpacking Dragon, and they are always excited to get the fresh food. As you mentioned earlier, we have some holiday type food the crew can enjoy, like turkey, cranberry sauce, cheeses, and chocolate. So I think they'll enjoy that a lot. A reward for their hard work.
And there was a quick message from the Deputy Manager of the International Space Station Transportation Integration Office. That's going to do it for us here tonight from our TLP Canada studio. I hope you'll join us on Saturday for live coverage of Cargo Dragon's docking, as well as the launch of Transporter 9. And make sure you stay tuned to our 24/7 Starship IFT-2 countdown tracker to keep on the latest of all the developments of Starship as we await IFT-2 from Starbase, Texas. That's going to do it from our TLP Canada studio. My name's Zach, and we'll see you next time because space is better together. Good night.